G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Now, it's been a super big week in the photography world. We've got Sony, we've got Fuji, we've got Hasselblad, we've even got some Nikon news this week. But as of this morning, just before I was going to record this, we had some tragic news which reverberates all around the world. Now, whether you're a monarchist or not, and I will leave that up to you as to who you are, the Queen has been a figure in most of our lives for all of our lives. And I think, as this is a channel about photography, but also a channel about humanity, the Queen is one of those figures, the Queen and her family, who have probably been photographed more than almost anybody in the world. And Queen Elizabeth herself, having been the monarch for so long, the longest monarch in over 70 years, well, she knows a thing or two about photography. But it's a big day, and in all seriousness, the Queen has been part of my life, my entire life. And let's face it, if you're under the age of about 75 or younger, the Queen has been the only monarch of England that we have known. A moment for the Queen. Well, let's start with the latest from Hasselblad. Yes, we have the X2D. We used to have the X1D, and now we've gone to a 2. And from 1 to 2, well, they have doubled the size of the megapixels that this camera is touting. It is now a small, medium format, 100 megapixel toting beastie. Now, this camera looks pretty similar cosmetically from the outside, but there has been a few fundamental changes. 1, it's now got in-body image stabilization. 2, it now has a flippy screen. And 3, it has no video at all. And 4, it has internal storage. What did you say? It has internal storage, and it has a whopping 1 terabyte of internal storage. Also from Hasselblad, they are now touting what I have said for quite a few years now, CF Express Type B as their card of choice. This seems to be where almost every manufacturer is heading, except for Sony, who is sticking with Type A. Who knows why? They do like to be different. Hasselblad, along with all of these changes in this new camera, has some new lenses to go with it. There are 3 new lenses: 38 2.5, the 55 2.5, and the 90mm 2.5. The camera now has a base ISO of 64, and Hasselblad says it is toting 15 stops of dynamic range, which is in 16 bits. Now, that is something to get excited about. If you are a Hasselblad lover, and especially an X1D and now an X2D lover, this is a great place to be. I own a more traditional medium format Hasselblad, but I don't use it very much. And in Nikon news, it would appear that the Z6 has now been formally discontinued. And if we look at the Japanese Nikon website, it is now considered an old product. Now, it's hard to say what this means in regards to, say, Z6 II firmware updates or a Z6 III, but I continue to believe that the Z6 III is, from my personal perspective, one of the next, if not the next camera that we will see from Nikon. And I think this is another move that says to us, well, the original Z6 is now no longer formally part of the range. Sure, there might be still a few out there in the channels, but it does make space for, if Nikon are going to run 2 models, and they did run 2 models with the Z6 and the Z6 II, so if we're going to follow that pattern, we would have the Z6 II and the Z3. So thus is the Z6 making way for the Z6 III. Might be, could be, we'll wait and see. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long. Also, in further Nikon news, Tamron, as we spoke about recently, formally announced that they would be making lenses with Nikon, and there was a 70-300 on its way. It was announced, development announced, and now it is launched. It is here. You can purchase it. I don't know how quickly stock will appear. And in further Nikon news, Nikon is buying a controlling share in a company called SLM. SLM is a German 3D metal printing company, to the best of my understanding, and Nikon are buying a controlling interest in that. That's the plan anyway. I'm not sure if the transaction has actually occurred. This simply could be an investment to have another arm to Nikon, or it could be to help them with the manufacturing of all the different things that Nikon make, because they don't just make cameras, as we know. Microscopes, machines for making computer chips, all sorts of stuff. Who knows where this fits in the pie, but it's certainly a very positive move from Nikon to see them investing in further technology to increase the size of the company as a whole. Positive upward movement. Now, in Apple news, it would be pretty hard to ignore the fact that Apple have just announced a whole lot of stuff. Of course, iPhones are ever pushing the envelope, along with Samsung and their phones, of what sort of photography can be achieved with a phone that sits in your pocket. And yet again, Apple are touting the fact that their latest cameras are even bigger and better, especially in their highest end models, than ever. We've got larger apertures, bigger sensors, better low light, and in the case of their standard lens, they've gone up to, I think it is 48 megapixels on their highest end camera. Now, there's tons of videos out there on the internet that you can watch, so we will not go into it any further other than to say mobile phones, or cell phones as they are called in some parts of the world, continue to just slowly iterate better and better. And it's always pretty small movements. But I will still argue that it's a very, very long way, and I don't think the physics are there anytime soon. And when I say anytime soon, I kind of think decade plus, that camera phones will be anywhere near a 35mm sensor and the glass that you stick on the front of it. Now, that doesn't mean for millions, if not billions of people, a cell phone is not enough for them. And we know that's the case because I think it's something like almost 1 billion phones are sold each year. And of course, as we know, when it comes to cameras, as in devices that are specifically designed to take photos, it's like 5 million a year. Very different. iPhone 14, check it out. It is some pretty exciting tech. And in Sony news, we have, out of left field from my perspective, the new PTZ robotically controlled camera, the sort of camera that you can put on the end of a crane and it will move around on X, Y, and Z axes, and you can use it as a robotic camera for all sorts of purposes. And this camera has an E mount. Now, if I was a Sony user, I suppose I'd be wanting to not see that sort of thing. I'd be wanting to see whatever camera they're putting out next for everyday photographers, like the A7R5 might be the next camera that I would consider in that space. Now, what is interesting about this camera is it's not really a camera as we know it. It doesn't have a grip. It's just literally a box with a mount that's connected to a gimbal, and everything is controlled remotely via, say, an iPad. Now, why is this camera coming out? I suppose it just shows that Sony want to push even further into the mid to high-end filmmaking space, because this is a mid to high-end piece of kit. You need a crane, and you can see this image here where it's on a substantial crane working on what might be called a TV advertisement or a film. Some of the key features of the camera: it supports UHD 4K 120, it has the Sony E-mount 4K full frame, and it has 12G SDI, HDMI, and streaming output. Looking at the press release, it says here they're aiming it for broadcast use, reality shows, house of worship, and live events and sports. The camera is known as the FR7 Cinema Line PTZ camera. The Sony camera is expected in late November this year, and it is almost $10,000 US. Next, Fuji with the X-H2, 40 megapixels of love. The X-H2 packs the latest X-Tran 5 processor, and it's also toting a BSI CMOS sensor. Now it is 40 megapixels on APS-C. Now this allows it to shoot 8K video and it shoots it up to 30 frames per second. That's all round a pretty whopping effort. It also shoots FHD at 240 frames per second. And it comes in at the really interesting price of $19.99 US. So this makes it cheaper than the XH2S. Now this is an interesting conundrum for me. The XH2S, lower megapixels, slightly higher frame rate, but the difference here is not that much. This camera shoots at 15 frames per second mechanical or 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter. And this one shoots 8K and the other one only shoots 6.2K. I'm a little bit confused as to why it is cheaper than the XH2S. Fuji state when shooting at 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, you can get over 1,000 frames in a single burst. It's quite a lot at 40 megapixels, that's for sure. The camera is estimated to ship on the 29th of September. Fuji are giving us some lenses as well. There's some new lenses for the XH2. Fuji have stated that not all of their previous lenses have the resolving capacity to fully utilize the 40 megapixels that's there. And they have released a list, you can jump on their website to see the current lenses that will resolve the full 40 megapixels, but they've also released some new ones, which includes the Fujifilm XF56 1.2 RWR, which will be $1,000. And there's a new zoom lens, a 20 to 35mm f4 for the GFX mount. Now it is equivalent to a 16 to 28 field of view relative to 35mm. This lens will be $2,500 US and shipping at the start of October this year. Fuji have also teased in their New York X Summit the fact that there will be a 30mm and a 110mm tilt shift lens released for the GFX mount coming soon. I think early next year is what they were saying. So it's very exciting to see some tilt shift lenses coming out for this small medium format sensor. Please do let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these interesting updates and products? The new Hasselblad. Would you be interested in the X2D? What about the new Sony and the Nikon Z6? Does this make way for the Z6 III? Who knows? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's been so good to see you. And if this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. And I will see you very soon. Bye for now.